as the thumbnail says, this is the story of when I met Jesus. I would have done this a long time ago, but I wanted to do it right. I want to make sure I had every fact down that I remember and what my parents and my brother, who's still alive, remembers. And when I realized that was Jesus. So to get started, the year was 1988, 1989. I'm not quite sure on the exact date. It might have been the fall, might have been the spring of, the fall of 1988 or spring of 1989. I know I was in first grade. I do remember that. And it was a big time for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And at that time, there was a company that was making pot pies. Now, if you don't know what a pot pie is, it's basically just a little thing like this big that's full of like chicken and potatoes and vegetables and kind of like a TV dinner. And they had a thing on the back of the box where it's like, hey, if you eat this many of them and cut out the proof of purchases. Now, a bunch of the younger kids may not remember that, but the older people do, where you would take these proof of purchases, you collect a bunch up, and then you would send it in, and then you would get something. And, excuse me. So I'm like, yeah, this is great. What you would get is a like plush doll of a Ninja Turtle about that big. And so my dad's like, yeah, we can do this. And so I was eating pot pies for a long time just to see if I could get one. So after the last one, my dad's like, yeah, we can send this in and you can get your Ninja Turtle. Well, back then, when it came to mailing that stuff out, basically you sent on little pieces of cardboard that you took off the package. And sometimes it cost a little bit of money, but you did pay for shipping, and everything was about 4 to 6 weeks out. Nothing was like nowadays where you get a receipt online. There was no online in 1988, 1989. So you basically sent this in hoping for the best. But it did say on every box 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. But of course, as a child, I was very impatient. Now, I lived and grew up in this place called Fayette, Missouri. I lived about 3 miles out of town. And there was 2 highways that came together, Highway 5 and Highway 240. So that kind of connected on right outside of Fayette, going towards Glasgow. And I lived on that highway. Now, that road was a 2-lane highway. 55 miles an hour was the speed limit. And where I lived, it was like a straight shot. Like from Fayette, you came over this big hill and a big long straight stretch, and there was a curve. So everybody was driving fast back and forth. And our mailbox happened to be across the road, and to this day still is across the road from the house. So as a kid, I didn't know what 4 to 6 weeks really meant. And so what I would do is I would run across the highway and check the mailbox all the time. My dad's like, no, it's not here. It's not here. You gotta be patient, wait. So, of course, I picked Leonardo. I love Leonardo, but that's besides the story. But it was a Sunday afternoon. It was probably around about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock or something. So we went to church that morning and we came back home. We ate. My parents made a good meal. We had a trailer back then, and now they have a house on the property right next to it. Literally, it's the same driveway. We still live there to this day. And so we got done eating, and of course, we didn't have Xboxes or any of that stuff, so we played outside. So my little brother, my big brother has passed away. God bless his soul. He was a great person. And him and my little brother ran outside first. I came out last or later, probably like 10, 15 minutes later. And what I was told by my brothers is they were hiding from me to see if I could find them. They were just pulling a little prank. Well, I came outside, nobody was there. And So I'm looking for him. And my uncle used to have a house on that property where the house is. My parents live now. And they were hiding in this thing we called the brush pile. It was just a bunch of garbage and stuff. And so I got tired of looking for him. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go check if there's a Ninja Turtle in the mailbox, if it's in. And I didn't know the mail didn't arrive on Sunday. So I'm going to go check the mailbox. Way down the road is a vehicle coming. I'm like, I can beat that vehicle, no problem. Done it a million times before. And the vehicle happened to be a Ford Bronco 2. Now, if you don't know what a Ford Bronco 2 is, it's like a Ford Ranger, which is a smaller vehicle than like a F-150, but built like a Bronco. And the vehicles back then were built tough. These new ones nowadays have nothing on these older vehicles. Needless to say, they're going 55, probably 60 miles an hour. Great people. And unfortunately, they were coming back from a funeral. And so they're going down the highway and I'm running across. And for some reason, I freeze in the highway. And what I heard, what I've been told, is there was music on in the vehicle and the dad was driving and he was looking back at the kids. They were saying something and the wife saw me and she's like, stop. And they're trying to like literally hit the brakes from 55 miles an hour. And it didn't really work. They hit me pretty hard. That's what I heard. And what happened when they hit me, was what I was told, is the grill of the vehicle. It's the front end. I hit it head first, right into the grill. So the grill, here's my head, just smack. And I rolled down the highway. And this is an account from my brothers when they watched it happen. So when it hit like that, I flipped head over feet down the highway about 50 feet. And what they did is they ran inside and they told my mom, they're like, Brett got hit. And they're like, what hit him? They're like, he's on the road. He got hit by a car. And so, and my parents were cleaning up dinner at the time, or lunch at the time. Sorry, it was lunch. And they saw my lifeless body on the road. And let's go into what I saw. Of course, they called the ambulance and all that stuff. Luckily, there was a lady, once we blocked the highway off, it was a nurse who came to help. But what I saw, with me freezing up in the earlier part, is when I just remember running across and then I just simply saw somebody in front of me. Now, if you're watching this, what I saw in front of me is somebody facing me, like waving their arms back and forth, like kind of frantic, like protecting me. And it was the weirdest thing because I'm running and then all of a sudden that's what I saw. And then it went black. I didn't feel anything. I didn't see the car hit me. I didn't see the car coming. None of that stuff. I didn't see any of that. So, my parents, of course, the ambulance is there. My dad has my brothers, if I remember right, they go to the neighbors down the road waiting for my grandparents to pick them up. My dad's going to drive to the hospital. My mom's in the ambulance. Now, of course, they put me on a board. They strapped me down and they put me in the ambulance. And when I was in the ambulance, they said, we don't know if he's going to live. And if he lives, he probably will never walk again. So let's go into what I saw. So I just happened to be in like a mall. And malls back then were different versus what, if you still have a mall. And I was standing in front of the store. There was three of us, only three of us there. It was empty. And we're standing in front of this store, and this guy has his hand on my shoulder, my left shoulder here. And there's a young girl there, about the same age as me, dark hair. And behind me was a man, very tall, and had black hair. What I remember was black hair. It could have been dark brown, but it looked black to me. But not like you see somebody with black hair that was dyed, like dyed hair. It wasn't like that. It was like dark. It was dark hair, longer face, very skinny, and had a beautiful smile on his face. And so I'm standing there with this girl. I'm wearing a leather jacket for some reason. I've always worn a leather jacket, so that apparently I'm wearing a leather jacket, you know. And I asked him, and I trusted him 100%. That's the thing. I trusted him 100%. There was no doubt. I didn't have any like, who's this guy? And he had his hand, like he had longer fingers, but not like crazy long fingers, just because he was taller. And a smile on his face, he's looking down at us, me and this young lady. And I was like, what can we get here? And he's like, you can have whatever you want. So me and her can just run into the store. And there's no clerks there, nobody else. And he's still smiling. And in the store wasn't like toys and stuff. I expected toys and stuff, but it was more of like grains and like flowers and beautiful things like that. And I didn't understand it. Kind of like if you run into like a craft store into a section. I'd never been to a craft store. There wasn't really craft stores back then. I mean, you had stores that had like some crafts, and that had also like yarn and material, stuff like that. And I just remember looking back, and I'm like, you know, I'm wondering where the toys are at, but I'm having a great time in that store. I remember looking back, and then all of a sudden I started waking up. And you got to remember, they didn't know if I was going to be alive, if I was going to make it, or if I would ever walk again. So I woke up in the ambulance, and my mom's in the ambulance, and that nurse lady's there, and a bunch of other people, and I'm just waking up, and I start to squiggle and move, and I don't know what's going on. And of course, I'm in first grade. And I remember this 100%. Everything, I remember this 100%. I remember hearing my mom kind of looking over and kind of seeing her. She's like, don't move. What are you doing? I said, my butt cheek itches and I need to scratch it. And that right there, took a lot off her mind if I was going to be okay. So after that, of course, they had to sedate me because I was moving. And then after that, I remember there was a kid crying. I was out of it, a kid crying. I remember waking up in the hospital, the kid was crying. And, I know those were just dreams. And somebody's crying, it's getting into my head when I'm dreaming. It's like when you hear somebody's alarm go off and you're dreaming about whatever that sound is. My mom said something that girl, give her this that I have. I don't remember what it was. I'd have to ask her again. But it went from a car hitting me at 55 miles an hour, right around there. Of course, they were trying to brake. But it was last minute braking. And wherever that family's at now, God bless them. I hope they're doing great. I really do. It went from me possibly not living through that experience to the best options, me not walking again, is they literally, truly, this is what happened. They wheeled me out of a wheelchair out the door into our old vehicle. Our old vehicle, my parents had like a 1984, 1985 Chevy Cavalier station wagon. It was brown. They wheeled me out to the car and they stood me up and sat me in the car. And I remember laying in the back. So my injuries ended up being, I had a broken collarbone, and then I bit through my tongue, and I had to go to a chiropractor for like 6 months or so because my neck ended up going straight by being getting hit head first by that Bronco 2. And that got fixed. And then I think it was like a month or two later, I was touching top of my head, top of my skull, and there was like a piece, like my skull would go down. It was broken off. We did MRIs, and they got MRIs done as soon as I told my parents about that, and just check there's water on my brain or if there's blood or anything. And they said, no, it's fine. He's young enough. It's going to grow back. It's going to heal itself. So we don't have to do any surgery or anything like that. And so that was worse. I think I went to school like 2 weeks later after that whole experience, 2-3 weeks. I don't remember. And the Ninja Turtle, I ended up getting the Ninja Turtle. I wanted Leo, but they sent a message with it saying the Foot Clan took our supplies, so we're giving you that. So I had a Michelangelo. I got a Michelangelo. So, but to really kind of wrap this up at the end of it, my mom asked me if I saw Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, I think so. But I didn't truly know. Because everybody's how they saw Jesus. Or if you go to a church of like, oh, he's like this, he's that, he's this nationality. Like he's like a white guy over here, and over here he's Hindu looking. And it just, it depends on the church you go to or the artist. So it was always very much like, I don't know. I think so. I can tell you now, I know exactly what he looks like. That who I saw, what I mean is who I saw is exactly Jesus. So, about a couple months ago, we have more technology. Somebody took the Shroud of Turin, which is the shroud that Jesus was wrapped up in after he was crucified on the cross. And they did a bunch of EI images. And I didn't really follow looking into that too much. And then a friend of mine one day posted a photo of it. And it stopped me in my tracks. Whatever I was doing, stopped me in my tracks. And I said, that's him. That's who was behind me with his hand on my shoulder. That's exactly who it was. And I have no doubt. Not a single one. And I know who was in front of me was an angel. I know that's true. But after seeing that, it made me go from I think I saw him to I know I saw him. And I'll show you right now who I saw, what Jesus looks like right now. So, that's my story. And I know there's a lot of other stories out there and a lot of other experiences. But everything I've told you is 100% true. And Jesus is coming back. He's 100% true. And I know some people just believe he was a man. He was just a holy man. No, he was more. And he is more. He's the Son of God. He's one with God. He was there at the beginning. He's going to be there at the end. So I hope if my life story, this experience I had, helps you out, I'm trying to find that relationship, or even forming a close relationship with God, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I hope it helped you out. And this was a tough one for me to do, but that's who I saw. He had his hand right here, smile on his face. He was tall. I'm about 5'8", 5'9". He was probably about like 6'3", 6'4". He was a tall dude. And I love him. And I thank him every day. For everything. So, just want to say I love you guys and God bless you. And have a great day.